Welcome to The Writer's Dream. This is a show where authors can talk about how they write their books, how they publish their books, and how they market their books. You can find us on YouTube. Just search my name, Linda Maria Frank. I'm the author of Annie Tillery Mysteries. And click on my picture and my channel will come up, and there are probably close to 150 interviews with various authors, local authors, some good tips on writing, some good tips on books. We're also on Facebook. If you want to be on the show or you have a question for me, please message me through the Facebook page, which is also called The Writer's Dream. You can also see us here at ltveh.org. Just search for The Writer's Dream. Today's guest is a recidivist, as I like to call them, or repeat performer, and his name is Joe Satriano. He is the author of In Sickness and in Health, and he is also the New York State Retired Teachers Teacher of the Year 2011, and he is the trustee of the Susan Satriano Foundation. So he is here today in costume for a reason. He is dressed as a character from Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which, as we all know, people of our age anyway, and maybe many other people, one of the Beatles' fine recordings. So without further ado, this is a question I like to ask all the authors. Every author takes a journey. What was unique about your journey? How did you come to write this book?
Well, first of all, thank you, Linda, for allowing me on the show and to talk about my passion in my life. The truth is that this book was not going to be a book. It was going to be a journal for me. Right after my wife Susan passed away of a 13-year battle with breast cancer, I was lost for 6 months. I was under my covers in fetal position, crying all day, feeling sorry for myself. And then I had this epiphany, like a lightning bolt struck my head, and suddenly I realized that, you know what am I doing under those covers? So I started a foundation in her name, the Susan Satriano Foundation, and then 6 months after that, I started writing. The interesting thing is that at Sue's wake, 4 people gave me journals, and they said, start writing, Joe, it's good for you. I was nowhere thinking about that at that time. I mean, I had just lost the love of my life for 29 years. I knew her for 33 years. But there was something in it that made me come back to it. And I went into Command Central, which is my computer room at home. That's what I refer to it as. And I wrote the words, the beginning. And it just started flowing like Mount Vesuvius lava. It was amazing. I wrote and wrote and wrote, and then, don't ask me why I did this, but I took this journal to Sue's breast surgeon, who hadn't seen me in, 14 years maybe? After doing 8 hours of breast surgeries at Winthrop Hospital, she came down to her office, called me in.
Dr. Virginia Moore.
Correct.
Yep, she's mine too.
Who has a wonderful foundation of her own, by the way. So yeah, now you know Dr. Mora is very competent, very much together.
Very professional.
Yeah, doesn't really show too much emotion because I guess when you're dealing with breast surgeries for 8 hours, it kind of gets to you a little bit. Anyway, so there we are at 9 o'clock in her office, and suddenly she goes through the manuscript, because I saw she read it because she obviously underlined things she wanted to talk about with me. She gets to this one part of the journal where she starts crying a little bit. And it was right then and there that I said, you know what? If I can affect her that way, maybe I can affect other people and make a dent in people's lives. And that's truly when it became a book. So that was my journey in a sense. Now it changed everything though, because now what I would do is I would put Post-its on every wall of my house. And I always carried a pencil with me. And every time I had an idea, I would go to the nearest Post-it and write something down. And then eventually, when the Post-its were filled, I would cull them together, bring them into Command Central, try to fit them into what appropriate chapters. Now, I thought that was a great idea. My cleaning lady didn't, though. Yeah, yeah. So that's the story. That's how it all began. And I would never say this about my own book, but I know that it's affected other people positively.
Oh, definitely.
They write to me after
I
they've
being
either-
one of them.
Well, yeah, and you know, they tell me that they want to emulate the way Sue and I handled the disease. We did it with laughter and love and humor. That was us. We weren't looking to be role models. We were just trying to get through the day.
Yeah.
But apparently, we've affected people the way we did it in a positive manner.
Well, you know what I think it is about journals? When you lose somebody and you go through grief, people are very good in the beginning, but after a while they don't want to hear about it anymore. But a journal never gets tired of hearing about what you want to say to
Absolutely
it.
correct.
And so you can really unburden yourself in ways that you wouldn't do with people, because you don't want to either share it with them or you burden them with it or what. But your journal can absorb it all, and you can say it in a way you want. And I like the idea of the Post-its. Every author has their own little gimmick that they use to organize their writing, but
Worked for me.
I mean, I've been to some of your events where you've done readings from the chapters, and you're right, it's humor and love. I mean, there's a lot of humor in this book. There's a lot of obvious sadness, and dealing with any kind of cancer is so
Sure.
difficult.
The last chapter in the book. It was easy for me to write the fun stuff, and there was plenty of that, because that's the way we lived it, pre-cancer, during cancer. But the last chapter in the book, which is called The Final Page in the Photo Album, that took me 3 months to write because I truly couldn't see the keyboard through the tears. But it was necessary for that to be written because cancer is real. And you know, there's a reality to it, even though you can learn to live with it and maybe have some fun in life. But you know, people have to realize that there's both sides of it. And that's what that last chapter really did. It kind of put Sue to rest.
And I think that also this is better than a bereavement group, better than seeing a psychologist once a week. It's your own constructive way of dealing with a loss, because we all deal with loss.
Sure, we all have. I don't know a single person in life that hasn't faced some form of tragedy.
Yeah, but that's what it is. There was a woman who wrote a book years ago. Her name was Judith Viorst, and the name of the book was Necessary Losses. And basically what she was talking about, that's what your life is. It's a series of necessary losses. You lose things from the time you're a child.
That's true too. I never thought of that. But you know, isn't it true that if life was always up here, we would never know that it is good? So even though you try to keep the lows to a minimum, it's somewhat important to know what they are, so that when those highs happen, you are ready to accept them and you appreciate them every day.
And also, if the line is like that, you know what that means.
Right.
So,
right. We don't want a flat line.
So you wrote the book, and then out of the book you developed the foundation.
Yeah.
So tell me how that works.
Well, the foundation was a no-brainer for me. I should tell you that Sue and I first were two high school math teachers, and you know the best part about being married to a math teacher.
Yes, you can multiply.
Of course. Don't steal my jokes. No, okay. But yes, we did multiply twice, actually. And the kids are born on the same day, 5 years apart. Well, we did a lot of calculating. We're math teachers.
I was going to say.
Yeah. But so after she died, it was a no-brainer for me, once I got my head together, to target particular kids. Because I saw Sue and I both saw the devastating effects it had on our own two boys to watch their mom's 13-year demise. So basically, the Susan Satriano Foundation targets kids who meet 3 requirements. No tests, no essays. They have enough on their plate already. They don't need me to add to it. Requirement number 1, graduating high school senior. Requirement number 2, going to an accredited college in the fall, because it is a scholarship for their higher education. Here's the kicker. The third one, they have to have a parent who's either passed away of cancer, presently battling, or in remission. If they meet those 3 requirements, hands down, they get the award. The only thing, and by the way, I rely on the counselors of every school to come up with a list of names for me, because they know the kids, I don't.
Right.
And one of the best things that I do is I go and talk to every single child. I ask each school to give me 20 minutes with each child. And I tell them my story, and I'm a stranger to them. I'm not affiliated with the school. I'm not a relative. They open up like crazy, Linda. It's amazing how they just want to share. I'm not going to say 100% of them do, but I'm telling
Right.
you, it's just amazing the stories that they tell you and how they've succeeded in dealing with it or still trying to, and how many of them want to go into college and do a give-back profession. So of course I'll ask them during the quote interview. It's not an interview because anyone who meets me is going to get the award. I lob up the question and I say, so why do you want to be a nurse? Why do you want to go into OT, PT? And inevitably they will tell me because they saw how those professionals help their parents, they want to give back. I pinch myself when I go home. I mean, did I just talk to a 35-year-old or an 18-year-old?
Yeah.
They have grown up so quickly, but my heart goes out to them because I
know what they
saw
went
it.
through. Yes.
And that's the only reason why they open up to me, because we're on a level playing field.
Do any of them contact you later?
It's
You have
amazing.
any stories?
Oh, it's just amazing how they feel the need. I don't ask them to write to me,
Right.
but they feel that need to just let me know how they're doing in college, if the parent is still alive, how the parent is doing, how their progress is. And they ask about me too. How am I doing? How are my kids doing? Because we talk about everything in that interview. Yeah, it's just, I'm still talking to the kids who I helped 14 years ago, who are no longer kids. They have kids of their own.
And what's the geographic area that you deal with?
Well, I help over 70 districts on Long Island and the tri-state area. I help over 24 across the nation. So for the kids who are in California and Washington State and Texas and Florida, I do Skype interviews with them. The only disadvantage is, Linda, I got to get dressed. Only waist up.
And also, this is very impressive. How much money have you given away in
Well,
scholarships?
In 14 years, I have now given out well over $1 million in scholarships to over 1,700 kids across the nation. But you see, I don't have $1 million. That's why I sell books, because 100% of the proceeds of the book goes to the foundation. And
Now we get to why you're dressed.
like this.
So talk about
Well,
that.
wait, doesn't everyone have a costume like this? I'm sorry.
I'm not going to tell you about the costumes I have in my closet. Go
We'll
ahead.
talk about that later. But anyway, so yeah, I'm running a Beatle concert October 26th at Oceanside Middle School Auditorium. The group that's performing is called Strawberry Fields.
They're famous.
They are. See, that's the thing. They were the original cast members of Beatlemania on Broadway. They also had a 17-year gig at B.B. King's in the city. They did a Beatle brunch. If I can just digress for a second, Sue and I saw them on Broadway back in the late 70s, early 80s, I forget when. And then the first birthday that I had after Sue was no longer with me, my friends saw how depressed I was. They took me to B.B. King's in the city. And lo and behold, who was performing there? Them. It was the first of 17 times that I've seen them. The 5th time I saw them, I gave them books, foundation t-shirts, pins, to thank them for getting me out of the funk that I was in. The 7th time they saw me in the audience, they called me backstage and they said, wow, we'd love to do a benefit concert for you. I was blown away. So they've done 5 concerts already. We've already made over $100,000. This will be the 6th one. And it's going to be great.
This is such a fun concert to go to. I went to 2 of them, I
Yeah.
believe. And you have raffles, and people
50-50.
donate gifts for the raffles, and it's just. And first of all, they're terrific. You close your eyes and you swear they are the Beatles. And if you're a Beatle fan, or if you'd like to become a Beatle fan, please come to this concert.
Oh yeah. Actually, for people in our generation, you will think that you're at the Ed Sullivan Theater, you know, screaming like crazy over this. And they are so interactive with the crowd. They get you up. So when I tell people that $25 a seat, you're not going to be sitting. You're going to be dancing in the aisles. And by the way I also run my foundation, 100% of what I take in goes right out to kids.
Right.
So, you know, if we make $20,000 that night, 100% of that is going to go. That's just the way I like to run it, so I can look people in the eye and say that. You know, that's. I think it's one of the benefits of the foundation that people know where their money is going.
Yeah, well, you started with writing a book that was therapeutic, And that morphed into an organization that raised money that's helped countless kids, and you keep it going, and that helps you.
Oh.
It helps the kids. And
It's a win-win.
And it helps everybody who comes to these concerts. I've done a number of book events with you where, you know, I see you speaking with, usually it's women, because they are the ones who are affected by breast cancer, and I'm sure that you've touched them as well.
Well, you know, it's amazing. We were talking about this on the way out, how many people we actually do touch and make a dent in people's lives. Sometimes we never get to know that. But you know, it's a great thing when you tell your story and people are, number one, willing to listen, number two, are touched by it to the point where they now want to do something to give back in some way, whether it be support my foundation or other foundations. You know, and it doesn't have to be monetary to help. You could put your arm around somebody and say, you know what, let's talk. Often I tell people I don't have answers, I have ears. I know you can't see them today, but yeah, you know, so really everyone touches somebody. We're not just individual pieces of driftwood that never hit into anything. I believe one of our politicians way back when said it takes a community, right? It takes a village.
Yes,
and
Hillary Clinton.
That's what we are.
It takes a village. She wrote a book about it. Well, I think also your background as a teacher, you know how to communicate, you know how to reach out to people, and also you're sensitive to, if you're a good teacher, you're sensitive to your kids, to your students.
Yeah.
And
well,
you learn how to read people.
Yeah, well, I do.
Which is helpful.
At the interviews, for example, you know, there are some kids who are reticent to talk about it. And I feel them out, you know, and I definitely don't want to make them say or do anything that they feel uncomfortable, because it's an awkward situation to begin with.
Sure.
Talking about a parent who either passed away of cancer or presently battling. So, yeah, but I will tell you that truthfully, most of them just are amazingly open. I could tell you stories that they're my heroes. If I could share one real quick.
Sure.
There was a boy who, and boys are, in general, I don't want to generalize, but in general, they're a little bit reticent to talk sometimes. So he finally warms up to me. And by the way, he was bald as the day is long, right? No hair on his head. He says, Joe, I want to show you something. He goes to his wallet and he pulls out his learner's permit. The picture on the learner's permit had hair down to his pupik. So I knew where this was going, but I let him talk, because now he was kind of warming up to me and he was willing to open up. So I said, well, what happened to your hair? So this is the story. He saw that his mom lost her hair during the chemo, so he had his shaved off. Now, not only did he do that, he was on the football team. He had the entire football team do the same, and the coach, and the water boy, and you name it, and they all sent all of that to the American Cancer Society, because they have this organization called Look Good, Feel Good, and they make wigs for people. I mean, this is a high school senior who saw the situation, didn't shy away from it, took the bull by the horns, went right for it. I mean, this is the type of kids that I meet.
Sure.
And if that's not inspiring to people, I don't know what is. You know, to see how they handle it and how they deal with it, and you know, they, like I said before, they are my heroes. They really are.
Oh, I think if you give people the opportunity to do something good, they'll take it. Most of them will take it.
Yeah, I hope so.
I think so too.
And we help in that direction.
Oh yeah.
We'd like to believe.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, you have to have faith, I think.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit more about the book. Why did you write under the name J.S. Russo? Because that's not your name.
Right. Joe Satriano, really. Well, of course, it's the Witness Protection Program.
Yes.
Yeah. No, actually, my mom...
I'm wearing that costume, I got.
Right. This is not rented, by the way. This is mine. I'll be wearing it on the corner of 3rd and Elm later, promoting the concert. No. My mom passed away 10 Marches ago. That's her maiden name, Russo. Always wanted to honor Mom. J for Joe, S for Susan. I cover all the bases. Yeah. Yeah. And plus, if you saw the picture that I use, it does look like a mafia picture. So, you know, it does stand to reason that I changed my name.
And how did you publish? You publish?
I went self-publishing through a group called Legwork Team Publishing. It was I originally went to the big companies Two things against me. Number one, being a neophyte author. They didn't want to take that on.
No.
Number two, when I told them that I wanted 100% of the proceeds to go to the foundation, that was the nail in the coffin.
No.
But I knew I had a message, so I wanted to get this out, and I went eeny, meeny, miny, mo kind of thing with a bunch of self-publishing companies on Long Island, and Legwork Team was the one I chose, and I'm very happy how they turned me into an author. I got to tell you too, it was funny because being a math teacher, when I handed in the manuscript, I fully expected it to come back with red marks and a grade on top of it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of course.
But they really didn't do too much to change it. They had suggestions, but the beautiful thing about being the author, you have the final say, whether you want to listen to them or not. Truly, my biggest mistakes, if you want to call them mistakes, were going from past tense to present tense in the same sentence. That's just easy to do. And they did tell me to take out one line, which I did. Right after Sue was diagnosed, I wrote in the book that I was really a candidate for Freud. You know, I mean, he would have had a ball with me. I was a wreck. And then I do an aside. I said, yeah, I wonder if Mrs. Freud wore a Freudian slip. And they said right away, take that out. It ruins the flow of the chapter. So I did.
Yes, but it's a typical Joe Satriano line. Okay, so what would you say the overriding theme of the book is?
Well, it's a book. Even though you know the ending, it's not a book about loss. It's a book about hope and optimism and love. That's the way we lived it. I can't say that about my own book, but people have told me that that's what they get out of it. Because we had so much fun dealing with this. Now, don't get me wrong. That makes it sound like we were happy that we had cancer. No. But you know, everyone is dealt cards. And you have choices in life. Either you could bury your head under the covers and never see the light of day, or you could reel backwards as much as you need to reel backwards, you know, dealing with the tragedy, stop the craziness, assess where you are, and then realize that, you know what, we want to move forward because we have a lot to live for. And that's what this book is all about, truly.
Because it was 14 years, wasn't it?
A 13-year battle,
Yeah.
yes.
So, you know, I've heard some people say that it's a wonderful book to use as a coping mechanism, to
Well,
look
thank
at
you.
different chapters and realize, you know, what you can take from the book and apply to your own situation.
Yeah, thank you. Well, yeah, and again, I'm not trying to be a role model. I was just merely telling people my story. I do believe, as much as this apparently, and I had no idea that it would affect people so positively, I do believe my next book will actually affect people even more positively than this one. You want to know the title?
Yes, I want to hear about the next book. That was really my next question was, have you written another?
I read
Go
your mind.
for it.
I should be Karnak
Yes, I was
instead
like,
of Paul McCartney. but
Remember Karnak?
Yeah, but so yeah, because Sue and I were both high school math teachers, and the next book takes you from that moment that she passed to the present, the name of the book has to be Aftermath.
Perfect, Aftermath.
Thank
So
you.
what happens in Aftermath?
Well, it actually, see, and this is
Because
why...
it's ready for publication, is it not?
Very close.
Yeah.
I've been saying that for a year. No, no.
Well, I can
No.
help you with that. You know?
I know you can, and I will turn to you because I believe legwork has kind of shut down. So yeah, but we'll see what happens. I actually have it back from the editor, so now I have to edit the editing, you know, which is nice because I get to reread my book. But yeah, I think it's going to help others because I don't know of too many books, and they might be out there because, you know, I'm not much of a reader myself, but that have a man opening up about how they dealt with a major tragedy or a loss in their life. And that's what Aftermath is all about. It takes you from the abyss that both my kids, Matt and Jess, were in, and me, to where we are today. And that's what I was saying before. We saw the depths, right? And now we're up here, and we appreciate every single day because we've seen it. So yeah, so it goes through the whole litany of how we kind of clawed our way out of this tunnel. You know, from doing a thing called Celebration for Susan. Sue had told me on her dying bed that, you know, just as what you said, people are going to be there for you initially, and then of course they have their own families. They have their jobs.
And you don't want to deal, if it's not your situation, you don't want to deal with grief 24/7.
Exactly. So what Sue suggested was, she says, you know, after they leave, you're going to be lonely. So this is what I want you to do. Have a celebration for Susan 30 days after I'm dead. I did. I had 200 people at the house. I catered it. People were coming in and out. They were sharing stories about it. It wasn't sad. It was like a celebration of her life. It really uplifted me. See, Sue was very smart. You know, she knew how to, like, for instance, the quintessential mother. She knew how to make my kids happy when they were sad. She knew how to keep them happy when they were happy. And likewise, her husband, me. So yeah, you know, she had a lot of innate knowledge, despite the math knowledge as well. You know, so that this next book will share a lot of the pathways that my kids and I took to get to where we are today.
And that too is a really important thing. So I wish you absolutely the most money possible from this event, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
And it's a pleasure to know you.
Oh, my pleasure.
I really am very happy that you came on the show to share this with you, because I know there are a lot of people who go through cancer. And cancer is not the death sentence. Certainly it was in your case, but it's not always the death sentence
Correct.
that it used to be. And people who are diagnosed today, there's always the hope for the next cure.
Absolutely. I will tell you real quick, if I can, during the interview process, when it's a child whose mother has breast cancer, and she's part of the process, you could tell by her talking, I'll ask her, what drugs is your mom on? And she'll name things that Sue never had the opportunity to use. They weren't out.
Right.
So I know there's progress, which is great. You know, we want to see the cure, though.